A groundbreaking new discovery in China has upended decades of archaeological research and challenged long-held beliefs of the capabilities of Neanderthals. For over 4 decades, the story of human origins has been told as a straight line. According to this prevailing tale, our species arose in Africa around 200,000 years ago and spread outward, replacing all other archaic humans in its wake with barely a trace of contact. Neanderthals, Denisovans, and other ancient humans were cast as evolutionary dead ends, while Homo sapiens stood tall as the lone survivor. But a new archaeological discovery from a cave in southwest China has detonated this overly simplistic narrative. The find is so mind-blowing, so paradigm-shifting, that it compels a complete rethinking of where we came from, how we lived, and how many ancient cousins we may still carry within us. In Longtan Cave in Guizhou province, archaeologists have uncovered a set of stone tools that mirror a distinctly Neanderthal technology previously found only in Europe, Kina musterian. These thick, resharpened scrapers, marked by stepped retouching and expert flake removal, are the hallmark of Neanderthal craftsmanship. Their sudden appearance 10,000 kilometers, more than 6,000 miles, from their European heartland changes everything we thought we knew about the boundaries of Neanderthal movement, culture and influence. The Kina tools unearthed at Longtan are unmistakable. They exhibit steep retouching, known as écailleuse scalariform, used to create rugged, durable working edges. These were not casually flaked rocks. They were purpose-built instruments of survival, designed for the scraping of hides, the shaping of wood, and the dismemberment of bone. These tools demonstrate sophistication, standardization, and longevity. What's more, they were repeatedly resharpened, a sign of planning and a deep understanding of resource efficiency. These techniques had been thought to belong solely to Neanderthal populations in Western Europe and the Levant. Yet here they are in a Chinese cave made by hands that lived and died 50,000 years ago. Who were these toolmakers? Were they Neanderthals themselves? Were they hybrids? Or were they local populations who had absorbed Neanderthal techniques through contact or cultural diffusion? Complicating the picture even further is another discovery from central China, the Xuchang skulls. These 100,000 to 125,000-year-old fossils from Lingjing in Henan province are an anatomical puzzle. They exhibit a strange combination of traits: low, wide cranial vaults, typical of Eastern archaic humans, alongside distinctly Neanderthal features such as the occipital bun and inner ear structures. These skulls may not be pure Neanderthal, but they are certainly Neanderthal adjacent. The discovery of the Xuchang skulls has provided significant insights into the presence of Neanderthal-like features in East Asia. These findings reveal a complex mosaic of archaic and modern human traits, suggesting intricate patterns of human evolution and migration in the region. The endocranial volume of the Xuchang-1 skull is approximately 1,800 cubic centimeters. This places it at the high end of Neanderthal and early modern human variation. Unearthed at the Lingjing site in Xuchang County, Henan Province, the 2 partial crania, designated Xuchang-1 and Xuchang-2, exhibit a unique combination of features. These include characteristics reminiscent of early Middle Pleistocene Eastern Eurasian humans, as well as traits shared with both archaic and modern late Pleistocene humans elsewhere. Notably, the skulls display a low, sagittally flat, and inferiorly broad neurocranium aligning with Eastern Eurasian ancestry. One of the most striking aspects of the Xuchang crania is the presence of features typically associated with Neanderthals. These include aspects of the occipital bone and inner ear structures, such as the labyrinthine proportions of the temporal bone. Such features are rare among earlier Eastern crania and suggest some level of population interaction across Eurasia during the late Middle and early late Pleistocene. The Xuchang findings challenge the traditional view that Neanderthals were confined to Europe and parts of Western Asia. Instead, they suggest that Neanderthal-like populations, or at least populations with shared ancestry, may have extended their range into East Asia. This supports the idea of a more interconnected, prehistoric world, where gene flow and cultural exchanges occurred over vast distances. Furthermore, The combination of archaic and modern features in the Xuchang skulls aligns with the hypothesis of regional continuity in human evolution. This perspective posits that modern humans evolved in multiple regions simultaneously, with continuous gene flow between populations, rather than solely originating from a single African lineage. The Xuchang skulls provide compelling evidence of the complex tapestry of human evolution in East Asia. Their unique blend of features underscores the need to reconsider simplistic models of human migration and development. As research continues, these findings will undoubtedly play a crucial role in shaping our understanding of the diverse paths that have led to modern humanity. Together, the Xuchang crania and the Longtan tools create a portrait of Eastern Eurasia as something far more complex than a passive recipient of African Homo sapiens. It was a cauldron of diversity where ancient humans experimented, interbred, and exchanged ideas. And yet for decades, this entire region was excluded from the main plot of our evolutionary story. The presence of Neanderthal-like tools and skull features in China demands a serious look at migration routes. There are two main corridors that could explain how these cultural and biological traits moved so far east. The Central Asian steppe route, running from the Caucasus across Kazakhstan into the Altai Mountains, and then dipping into western China, and the Himalayan foothills route, which would trace the southern edge of the Tibetan plateau from India through Nepal and Myanmar into Yunnan and Guizhou. During warmer interglacial periods, such as marine isotope stage 5, around 125,000 years ago, these routes would have been passable and rich with game. The skulls from Xuchang date precisely to this time, suggesting that some archaic groups had already made the journey long before the 50,000-year-old tools were left in Longtan Cave. The Longtan artifacts may represent a later wave of migration or a long-standing hybrid population maintaining traditions across millennia. Either way, they destroy the idea that Europe was the sole cradle of innovation and that Asia was merely a quiet backdrop. Why has this discovery hit the field of paleoanthropology like a thunderclap? Because for 40 years, science has clung to a beautifully simple but increasingly flawed idea: the recent out-of-Africa theory. According to this model, modern humans emerged in Africa and completely replaced all archaic humans elsewhere without interbreeding or borrowing technology. This model was clean, it was easy to teach, but it was wrong. Fossils like the Xuchang skulls and tools like those from Longtan were long considered outliers, anomalies to be explained away. The possibility that Neanderthals had a wider range or that hybrid populations lived deep in Asia was simply too messy for the clean lines of the prevailing theory. As a result, an entire continent's worth of evolutionary history was marginalized. Whole cultures, possibly whole species, were forgotten. It has taken finds like these to shatter the dogma. The human story is not a tree with a single African trunk and a few dying branches. It is a braided stream, populations flowing, merging, splitting, and sometimes rejoining over tens of thousands of years. Asia was not a silent witness. It was a dynamic arena of innovation, interaction, and endurance. We now understand that human evolution did not follow a linear path. The Quina tools in China and the Xuchang crania tell us that complex technological traditions and population mixing were not exceptions, but the norm. Innovations didn't come from one place, they emerged in many. Neanderthals, Denisovans, archaic East Asians, and early modern humans were not separate actors. They were neighbours, competitors, and sometimes partners. The people of Longtan Cave were likely part of that tapestry. Whether they were full Neanderthals, Neanderthal-Denisovan hybrids, or local Homo with deep roots in Asia who had adopted foreign tool-making techniques, they represent a vital chapter in the human saga. A chapter we are only now beginning to read. And as we do, one thing becomes clear. The story of human origins is not finished. In fact, it may have just begun again, deep in the limestone caverns of China. For decades, the dominant narrative in paleoanthropology was the recent out-of-Africa theory. that anatomically modern humans arose exclusively in Africa around 200,000 years ago and replaced all other archaic humans across the globe without significant interbreeding. It was a story of clean, linear replacement. It made the tree of human evolution look like a single, straight trunk sprouting out of Africa, unbranched, unblemished, and irrevocably one-directional. But science thrives not on simplicity, but on accuracy, and the simplicity of the out-of-Africa model, though elegant, was never completely supported by the fossil record. For decades, many researchers who encountered robust, complex skulls in China, Indonesia, or Central Asia, skulls that did not fit neatly into either Neanderthal or modern categories, were pressured to reclassify, to reinterpret, or to ignore. These fossils were often dismissed as anomalies or transitional debris. Entire tool cultures, like the ones recently uncovered in Xuchang Cave, were overlooked because they did not match expectations rooted in African-centered models. The emphasis on Africa as the exclusive cradle of modernity created a form of tunnel vision. Research in Asia and Europe was underfunded, underexplored, and underappreciated. The possibility that Neanderthals or other archaic populations might have had lasting legacies outside Africa, cultural, technological, or genetic, was treated as a fringe hypothesis. Even when fossil evidence, such as the Xuchang skulls or technological parallels like Kina tools, appeared thousands of miles away from their presumed origins, they were often brushed aside as coincidental or contaminated by dating errors. This dogmatic insistence on a singular African origin without mixture has arguably set back the science of human origins by at least 40 years. While Africa indeed played a central and irreplaceable role in our story, the reduction of the human saga to a single geographic point of origin oversimplifies what is now clearly a braided stream of migrations, interbreedings, and regional developments. The fossil and archaeological evidence from Eurasia, especially East Asia, has long hinted at a much more complex reality. The Xuchang skulls do not look like modern Homo sapiens. They retain robust archaic features, but also show traits previously thought unique to Neanderthals. These findings should have sparked a revolution in understanding, but instead they were often framed as mysteries rather than what they truly were, challenges to orthodoxy. Similarly, the presence of Kina Musterian tool types in southwest China should have been front-page news in paleoanthropology. These tools, traditionally associated with Neanderthals in Europe, demonstrate technological convergence or direct migration into regions previously considered outside Neanderthal range. If a Quina-style scraper is found in France and another nearly identical one in Guizhou province, China, that means either the knowledge travelled or the people did. Either scenario destroys the notion of cultural isolation and supports a mosaic, not a monolith. But because these discoveries emerged outside the African-centered framework, they were routinely sidelined. The result is a tragic delay in understanding, a lost generation of inquiry that could have been exploring the vast Eurasian continent's role in shaping the human story. Whole populations, possibly Denisovan Neanderthal hybrids, regional archaics, or now extinct branches of the genus Homo, have remained unnamed and unstudied due to the limitations imposed by a theory that grew too rigid. It is time to move beyond the straight-line out-of-Africa narrative and embrace what many scholars now call a braided stream model. In this model, early human populations didn't simply fan out of Africa and sweep aside archaic groups. Instead, they met, interbred, exchanged technologies, and even merged. Neanderthals didn't vanish overnight. They left behind tools, bones, behaviors, and possibly even hybrid descendants who carried both their genes and their ideas. The discovery of Kina tools in China and the evidence of Neanderthal-like skulls in Xuchang help untangle that braided stream. They show that Eurasia was not simply a stage on which African actors performed, but a vibrant, active realm where evolution took its own path, parallel, intersecting, and at times indistinguishable from what was happening elsewhere. Instead of imagining human history as a single path of progress, we must now envision a vast, interconnected web of cultures, lineages, and innovations rising and falling, merging and separating across the ancient world. Asia was not a periphery. It was a nexus. The populations that lived there may have looked different, thought differently, and made tools in unfamiliar ways, but they were as human as any African or European group. Their story is our story too. The revelations from Longtan Cave, Xuchang, and similar sites across China are part of a larger reckoning. No longer can paleoanthropology afford to marginalize Eurasian finds in favor of African dogma. Science must remain open to complexity, even when it challenges cherished narratives. That is how progress happens, not by reinforcing the simple story, but by daring to embrace the messy, magnificent truth. And that truth, written in the scars of keener scrapers, the curves of ancient skulls, and the winding paths through the steppe and forests of Asia, is this. The evolution of our species was never a single spark in one corner of the world. It was a wildfire of movement, contact and reinvention, spreading across continents and across time, shaping who we were and who we would become. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe.